Good evening, everyone. Growing up in a world that often told me to speak only when spoken to, I realized early that silence is not always golden, especially when it's expected of women. But here's the thing, I'm not here to be expected. I'm here to be exceptional, and every high-value woman is. A high-value woman should talk, and she shouldn't whisper. She should speak with clarity, with grace, and with power, because her voice is not a threat, it's a revolution. Let me tell you what a high-value woman is not. She's not the loudest in the room, but when she speaks, people listen. She's not perfect, but she's present, fully, authentically, unapologetically. A high-value woman owns her mind. She knows that her intelligence isn't something to dim for comfort or to shrink for acceptance. It's something to celebrate loudly. She talks about ideas, not just trends. She builds rooms, not just waits for a seat at the table. She talks when she's passionate. She talks when there's injustice. She talks when she's had enough. Because her silence doesn't protect her, it only empowers the status quo. And let's be honest, the world is uncomfortable when a woman knows her worth and dares to voice it. But that's exactly why she must. A high-value woman talks about boundaries and she enforces them. She talks about love and she demands it in its healthiest, most respectful form. She talks about money, power, politics, because these are not just men's conversations. These are human conversations, and we are more than qualified to lead them. You see, when a high-value woman talks, she doesn't just speak for herself, she echoes for generations of women who were told to stay quiet. So to every woman out there, your voice is your signature. Use it. Speak your truth even when it shakes. Speak not because you owe the world explanations, but because you owe yourself liberation. A high-value woman understands that her voice is not just a tool for communication, it is an expression of her identity, her experiences, and her purpose. She doesn't wait for validation or approval to speak. She recognizes that staying silent to make others comfortable does not serve her growth or her authenticity. In a world that has often told women to be quiet, agreeable, or invisible, she chooses to rise above those outdated scripts. Her voice is a declaration of her worth, her presence, and her right to take up space not just physically, but intellectually and emotionally. When a high-value woman speaks, she does so with intentionality. She doesn't talk just to fill silence, but to offer something meaningful, whether it's an idea, a perspective, a boundary, or a call for respect. She knows that her voice carries weight, not because she yells the loudest, but because she speaks with self-awareness and conviction. There is depth in her words because they come from a place of self-knowledge. She has taken the time to reflect on who she is and what she stands for, and that clarity fuels her confidence. This kind of woman is not afraid of disagreement or criticism. She doesn't let fear of judgment muzzle her opinions. She understands that not everyone will agree with her, and that's okay. What matters is that she stands in her truth. She doesn't dilute herself for the comfort of others. Her voice is not molded by trends or expectations, but by principle and integrity. She speaks when it's easy, and she speaks when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because that is when her voice is needed most. The high-value woman uses her voice to empower, not just to assert. She uplifts others, asks the tough questions, and challenges what needs to be changed. Whether she's in a boardroom, a classroom, or around a dinner table, she does not shy away from making herself heard. Her voice isn't always loud, but it is always clear. It's grounded. It's rooted in self-respect. She talks because she knows silence won't protect her and it won't elevate her. She speaks because she has something to say, and that alone is reason enough. Her voice is not an afterthought. It is a priority. It is not optional. It is powerful. And she knows that when she owns her voice, she owns her life. When a high-value woman speaks, it often disrupts the status quo. Not because she is trying to cause trouble, but because her voice carries truth, power, and intention. The world isn't always ready for that. Society is conditioned to accept women as nurturers, supporters, listeners, but not always as leaders or challengers. So when a woman dares to speak up, especially with strength and certainty, it can feel like a threat. But the truth is, her voice isn't a threat. It's a revolution. Every time she chooses to speak her truth, she challenges a long history of silence. She breaks patterns that were built to suppress, to shrink, to tame. Her words are not weapons, but they are powerful. They can shift energy in a room, change perspectives, and ignite movements. She doesn't speak just to be heard. She speaks to make a difference. Her voice carries the fire of generations who were silenced and the hope of those yet to come. She knows that her courage to speak is not just about her, it is a signal to other women that they can do the same. There is something radical about a woman who is not afraid to own her voice. It challenges comfort zones. It forces reflection. It creates necessary discomfort in spaces where silence was once the standard. But discomfort is often the birthplace of growth. Her voice is not meant to make others feel small, but to elevate the conversation, to ask the harder questions, and to draw attention to what truly matters. She is not reckless with her words, but she is fearless in using them. Many may misunderstand her strength for aggression or arrogance, but she doesn't let that stop her. She knows that being underestimated is not her problem to fix. Her responsibility is to speak the truth with integrity, even when it shakes the room. Her voice is not noise, it's purpose in motion. It is intention wrapped in courage. When she talks, she invites transformation, not because she demands control, but because she demands consciousness. She uses her voice to rewrite the narrative, to stand in her worth, and to show others that power can be expressed with dignity, intelligence, and grace. So when a hive, you woman speaks, it is not just communication, it is evolution. It is a shift. It is a revolution unfolding, one bold word at a time. You woman knows that her intelligence is not something to hide, downplay, or apologize for. She refuses to make herself smaller to make others feel bigger. For far too long, women have been encouraged to be agreeable rather than assertive, likable instead of intelligent. But she has no interest in fitting into that mold. She understands that her mind is one of her greatest assets, and she honors it by using it fully, fearlessly, and without shame. She doesn't dim her brilliance in conversations, whether she's in a meeting, in a relationship, or among friends. She doesn't pretend to know less than she does just to protect someone else's ego. She has worked hard to educate herself, whether through formal study, life experiences, or personal growth, and she brings that wisdom to the table with pride. Her intelligence is not just about what she knows, but how she thinks. It's in her ability to analyze, to question, to solve, and to imagine. She is curious by nature, constantly seeking to learn more, to expand her understanding, to challenge her own thinking, and she encourages others to do the same. Her conversations are filled with substance because she values depth. She's not satisfied with superficiality. She talks about ideas, dreams, injustices, possibilities. She enjoys meaningful dialogue, and she's not afraid to ask the questions no one else will ask. Some people may find her intimidating, not because she tries to be, but because they're not used to seeing a woman so comfortable in her intellect. But she's not responsible for making others feel secure in the face of her strength. She doesn't downplay her knowledge to be more palatable. She doesn't dilute her opinions to be more accepted. She knows that doing so would be a disservice to herself and the value she brings to any space she enters. In relationships, she expects to be met with mutual respect, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. She does not equate love with silence or submission. She believes that a true partner will admire her mind, not fear it. And in her career, she doesn't wait to be handed opportunity. She speaks up, she leads, and she advocates for herself with clarity and confidence. Her intelligence is part of what makes her magnetic. She owns it. She protects it, and she expresses it with elegance and authenticity because you woman doesn't need to choose between being smart and being respected. She knows she can be both, and she is. You woman is intentional with her voice. She understands that silence can sometimes be mistaken for consent, so she makes it a point to speak up about the things that truly matter. She is not interested in surface-level conversations that avoid the heart of who she is or what she wants. She believes in speaking about boundaries, about her emotional needs, her ambitions, and the things that bring her peace and purpose. She doesn't shy away from these topics because she knows that clarity is a form of self-respect. When it comes to her boundaries, she does not leave room for confusion. She is kind but direct. She knows that saying no is not rude, it's honest. She doesn't apologize for protecting her energy, her time, or her emotional well-being. If something doesn't align with her values, she will speak up, not because she wants to control others, but because she wants to honor herself. She understands that the ability to communicate boundaries is not a sign of coldness or arrogance. It's a sign of maturity and strength. She also talks about love, but not the kind of love that's filled with conditions or expectations. She speaks of love in its truest, most respectful form. Love that uplifts rather than limits, that nourishes rather than drains. She's not afraid to express what she needs in a relationship, and she doesn't settle for less than emotional safety and mutual growth. Her conversations about love are grounded in self-awareness, not desperation. She knows that a meaningful connection requires honesty, and she is willing to have the difficult conversations that build trust and understanding. Beyond relationships, she engages in topics that are often considered uncomfortable or too bold. For women, like money, ambition, power, and self-worth, she doesn't believe these subjects should be off limits. She knows that these conversations are essential for her growth and for reshaping the narrative around what women are allowed to talk about. She takes up space in these dialogues because she sees herself as worthy of being in the room, of leading, of deciding, and of building her own life on her own terms. Val, you woman doesn't avoid important conversations just to keep the peace. She knows that real peace comes from honesty, not avoidance. She uses her voice to create clarity, to advocate for herself, and to live with intention. Every word she chooses is a reflection of her self-respect, and she speaks because she values herself enough to be fully seen and heard. When Val, you woman speaks, she is never just speaking for herself. Whether she realizes it or not, her voice carries the weight and legacy of generations of women who were told to stay quiet, to stay in their place, and to not make too much noise. Her courage to speak out is more than a personal act. It is a powerful ripple effect that touches the lives of others, especially those who have been silenced or made to feel invisible. She understands that her voice is not just hers, it's a symbol of progress. Every time she expresses her opinion, every time she stands up for herself or sets a boundary, she reclaims space that once wasn't available to women like her. She gives voice to the voiceless, not because she tries to speak asterisk for asterisk them, but because her strength inspires others to discover their own. She knows that by speaking out, she chips away at the old narratives that women should be seen but not heard. Her voice becomes a mirror for others to recognize their own worth, their own right to speak up and be acknowledged. She doesn't take that responsibility lightly. She recognizes that for some women, especially those in environments that still stifle female expression, hearing someone else speak with confidence and clarity can be a life-changing experience. It can plant a seed of self-belief. It can awaken courage. It can spark movement. This is why she chooses not to shrink. Not just for herself, but for all the women still learning how to expand. Her voice is a living contradiction to the systems that try to define what a woman should or shouldn't say. She breaks stereotypes simply by being herself, opinionated, passionate, articulate, and free. And in doing so, she allows others to do the same. She knows that history isn't just shaped by grand speeches or global platforms. It's shaped by everyday choices to speak the truth in the face of silence. Even in her quietest moments, she speaks volumes through her presence, her authenticity, and her refusal to conform. She honors the women who came before her by not repeating the cycle of silence. She becomes a bridge between the past and the future, showing that progress is possible, one voice at a time. By using her voice with intention and courage, she becomes part of something greater than herself. She becomes a symbol of what happens when one woman dares to speak, and countless others realize they can too. Val, you woman does not wait for permission to speak, to lead, or to take up space. She understands that if she waits to be invited into the conversation, she might be waiting forever. Instead, she creates her own space, steps into it fully, and speaks with the confidence of someone who knows her worth. She doesn't rely on external validation to determine when or how she should express herself. Her voice is not conditional. It is constant, and it is hers alone to own. She doesn't ask, "Can I say this?" She asks, "Is this true to me?" That is the difference. Her decisions are rooted in self-awareness, not approval. She speaks because she knows her thoughts, experiences, and ideas are valuable, even if others haven't yet recognized their importance. She doesn't need consensus to be courageous. Her sense of self-worth gives her the freedom to express herself authentically, without watering herself down to fit someone else's comfort level. This woman moves with intention. When she speaks, she's not performing. She's not trying to impress anyone. She's grounded. She understands the power of deliberate expression and the strength it takes to show up exactly as she is. Whether she's addressing a crowd, having a personal conversation, or advocating for herself in a high-stakes situation, she leads with clarity. She knows what she wants to say, and she says it in a way that reflects her values and vision. She also recognizes that her voice has the ability to influence, not through force, but through presence. There's something magnetic about a woman who knows who she is and doesn't wait for the world to catch up before stepping forward. She doesn't over-explain, she doesn't seek to please, she simply speaks, and in doing so, she commands attention not through noise, but through depth. In a world that often rewards silence in women and confidence in men, she dares to shift that narrative. She understands that self-expression is not arrogance, it is alignment. She's not trying to prove anything. She's simply living in her truth, and that alone is powerful. Her voice reflects a sense of internal permission that says, I deserve to be here. I have something to contribute. I am not afraid to be heard. Because at the end of the day, she knows that waiting for permission limits her power. Speaking with purpose and conviction allows her to fully step into it. She doesn't need a microphone to be powerful. She just needs her voice and the decision to use it. Let the world adjust to the sound of your strength. Because you woman doesn't ask for permission to speak. She understands that her voice is power, and she uses it. Thank you.